Most people picture the number 666 as a mystical symbol scrawled on horror movie posters, a curse whispered in dark rooms, a mark that no one is supposed to touch. The truth is different. What Revelation 13 actually commands is not fear, not silence, but calculation. This is the story they never told you about the count the Bible itself demands. The verse hides in plain sight at the end of Revelation 13, verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. 9 words in the original Greek carry the weight of 2,000 years of interpretation. And embedded in those words is a single Greek verb that changes everything, sephisato. It does not mean pray about it. It does not mean fear it. It means run the math, do the arithmetic. Sit down with a stylus and a wax tablet and work it out. The author who wrote those instructions is a prisoner. His name is John. He is exiled on Patmos, a small volcanic rock in the Aegean Sea, roughly 40 miles off the coast of what is today Turkey. He is old. Tradition holds that he is somewhere in his 80s or 90s, the last surviving eyewitness of the ministry of Jesus. His skin is weathered by decades of Mediterranean sun. His hands, once a fisherman's hands, tremble now when he writes, and he writes on smuggled parchment, because writing what he is writing on Roman soil could cost him what little remains of his life. You have to picture the moment. A cave on a cliff face, wind coming off the sea in salt-heavy gusts, a single oil lamp sputtering because the wick is old and the olive oil is rationed. The year sits somewhere between 92 and 96 of the Common Era, and this ancient man is receiving visions so violent and vivid that scholars today still argue whether they are apocalyptic imagination or eyewitness testimony to something no human mind should have to hold. Somewhere in the middle of those visions, he sees a beast. He describes it in terrifying detail: 10 horns, 7 heads, blasphemous names on every head, a mouth speaking arrogant words for 42 months. He watches it wage war against the saints. He watches it demand worship. He watches it stamp a mark on the right hand or the forehead of every buyer and seller in the known world. And then he stops the vision. Mid-flight, the narrative breaks, and he speaks directly to the reader. Here is wisdom, 2 words. In Greek, hode he sophia. It is a signal, it is a doorway. It is John telling you, across 19 centuries of distance, that the next sentence is not decoration, it is a puzzle, and the puzzle has an answer. To understand why John's audience would have grabbed a stylus and started calculating the instant they heard verse 18, you have to understand a system called gematria. It is older than the New Testament. It is older than Rome. It comes from the way ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek both used their letters as numbers. There were no separate digits. Aleph was 1, Beth was 2, Gimel was 3. In Greek, Alpha was 1, Beta was 2, Gamma was 3, and the pattern climbed through the entire alphabet until you reached Tau at 300 and Rho at 100. Every word had a numerical value, the way every word today has a spelling. It was as automatic as counting change. A child in Ephesus or Alexandria could tell you the numerical value of a common name the way a modern child can tell you how to spell one. Because of gematria, names became numbers, and numbers, in that world, became a way to say things without saying them. If you scratched a graffito on the wall of a Pompeii tavern that read, "I love her, whose number is 545, everyone in your tavern knew you were confessing love without revealing her name. Archaeologists have found exactly this kind of graffito in the ruins of Pompeii, buried by ash in 79 of the Common Era, only about 15 years before John wrote Revelation. So when John wrote, Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. He was not being mysterious. He was doing something his readers would have recognized immediately. He was writing a coded name, and in the environment of Roman persecution, a coded name was the only safe way to name a Roman. Which brings you to the answer that most first-century Christian readers would have reached in under a minute: Nero. Not Nero as a mystical concept, Nero as a specific human being, Nero Claudius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, the fifth emperor of Rome, born in the year 37 of the Common Era, adopted by his stepfather Claudius, crowned emperor at age 16, murderer of his own mother, murderer of his own wife, murderer of his own brother. And on the night of July 18th, 64 of the Common Era, the man whom Christians across the empire believed had set fire to the city of Rome. The fire burned for 9 days. 10 of Rome's 14 districts were damaged. 3 districts were leveled completely. Ancient temples that had stood for 400 years turned to ash. Historians estimate that hundreds of thousands of Romans lost their homes. When the smoke cleared, Nero needed someone to blame. He chose the Christians. You have to understand how small that community was. In the year 64, there might have been fewer than 3,000 Christians in the entire city of Rome. They were a minority within a minority, most of them poor, many of them slaves, worshipping in private homes and underground tombs, and overnight they became the imperial scapegoat. The historian Tacitus, no friend of the Christians, records what happened next. He was writing about 50 years after the events, using Roman government archives, and even he, a hardened Roman senator, wrote with visible disgust. Christians were arrested by the hundreds. They were dressed in the skins of wild animals and torn apart by hunting dogs in the imperial gardens. They were nailed to crosses and set on fire to serve as human torches to light Nero's evening chariot races. Some were crucified upside down. Some were sewn into leather bags with live scorpions and thrown into the Tiber River. Nero attended personally. Suetonius, another Roman historian, records that the emperor mingled with the crowd, dressed as a common charioteer, watching bodies burn along the garden paths while music played. For the Christians who survived that summer, Nero was not a metaphor for evil. He was evil with a face and a name. Now do the math the way a first-century reader would have done it. Take the name Nero Caesar. In Greek it is Neron Kaisar. Transliterate it into the Hebrew alphabet the way Jewish Christians would have naturally written a foreign name. You get 5 letters for Neron and 4 letters for Kaisar. Nun equals 50. Resh equals 200. Vav equals 6. Nun again equals 50. That is the first word, totaling 306. Now Kaisar. Kof equals 100. Samek equals 60. Resh equals 200. When you add every value across both words, the total lands on the number the vision names, 666. 666. You are looking at a message that took less than 60 seconds to decode if you lived in the year 95 and knew your alphabets. And John did not have to say the name out loud. He never had to write the word Nero on his parchment. He never had to give the Roman authorities a document they could use as evidence. He gave his readers a puzzle, and the puzzle protected them. But here is where the story becomes strange, because in the oldest surviving Greek manuscripts of Revelation, the number is not always 666. In one of the earliest fragments ever discovered, Papyrus 115, unearthed in Egypt in the late 20th century and dated to the 3rd century of the Common Era, the number is different. It reads 616. For centuries, scholars called that fragment a scribal error. Then something remarkable happened. Researchers realized that if you take the same name, Nero Caesar, and transliterate it into Hebrew from its Latin spelling rather than its Greek spelling, the value drops by exactly 50 because the Latin form loses one letter. That drop moves the total from 666 to 616. Two ancient manuscript traditions, two spellings of the same emperor, two numbers pointing at the same man. Coincidence does not survive that kind of arithmetic. But you have to keep reading the chapter to see what John was really doing. Because 666 is not only a coded name, it is also a theological accusation. In the numerical vocabulary of the Hebrew Bible, the number 6 is the number of humanity. Man was created on the 6th day. Man works for 6 days. 6 falls one short of 7, which is the number of divine completion. 6 is close to God, but not God. 6 is aspiration without achievement. 6 is a creature reaching for the throne and falling short by exactly 1. Now write 6 3 times. 666. Triple imperfection, triple failure. A being who claims divinity in the hundreds, in the tens, and in the ones, and who falls short in every place value. The gematria points at Nero. The theology points at every ruler who has ever demanded worship reserved for God. That is why John's puzzle has outlived the emperor it targeted. Because Nero died in June of 68 of the Common Era, stabbed in the throat by his own servant while soldiers hunted him through the streets outside Rome. He was 30 years old, and within 27 years of his death, John wrote Revelation. The immediate target was already a corpse. Yet the number kept working. It worked because John did not just encode a name, he encoded a pattern. Look at what the beast in Revelation 13 actually does. It rises out of the sea, which in ancient Jewish literature symbolized chaos and Gentile empires. It has 7 heads and 10 horns, matching the imagery Daniel used centuries earlier for the succession of world empires. It receives its authority from a dragon, meaning its power is derivative, borrowed, not sovereign. It speaks blasphemies against the God of heaven. It wages war against the saints and is given permission to overcome them. It demands that everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, receive a mark on the right hand or on the forehead. Without the mark, no one can buy or sell. Every one of those attributes describes the imperial cult that Nero pushed to obscene extremes. Every attribute describes the economic system where Roman coinage carried the emperor's face and title, where every marketplace transaction required handling metal that named a mortal man as divine. Every attribute describes what Christians in Asia Minor were experiencing at the exact moment John wrote. But the pattern did not end there, because Rome fell in the year 476 of the Common Era, and other beasts rose after Rome. Napoleon, Kaisers with iron helmets, 20th century dictators whose names, when run through gematria, produced values Christian commentators pointed to for decades. Charles V of Spain, various medieval popes. Even individual Protestant reformers were accused of being the beast by their opponents. Some calculations were serious. Many were desperate. A few were pure propaganda. That flood of interpretations is not evidence that the puzzle is empty. It is evidence that John's design is layered. The immediate target was Nero. The pattern targets every Nero who follows. And there have been many. The historian Suetonius, writing about the emperors of the 1st century, records that Nero's death in 68 of the Common Era did not end his story in the popular imagination. For nearly 30 years afterward, rumors spread through the eastern provinces that Nero had not really died, that he had escaped east, that he was hiding among the Parthians, that he would return with an army and reclaim the throne. Historians today call this phenomenon the Nero Redivivus legend. Multiple impostors appeared claiming to be the risen emperor. Ancient records name at least 3 of them. One gathered thousands of followers before Roman troops caught up with him. John wrote in the middle of that legend. His original readers would have heard the phrase, "the beast that was and is not and yet is," and understood it immediately. The beast that was Nero, who is not because he died, who yet is because his spirit keeps returning in new forms. That is what the number does. It does not name only a man, it names a role. The cost of that revelation for the community reading it was almost impossible to overstate. Daily life for a Christian in the province of Asia in the year 95 carried impossible pressure. You made your living as a leather worker, or a dyer of cloth, or a bronze smith. You belonged to a trade guild. Every trade guild in the Roman world had a patron deity. Every guild meeting began with a libation, a small ritual sacrifice poured out to the god of the guild and to the divine emperor. If you refused, you were expelled from the guild. If you were expelled from the guild, you could not sell your goods in the public market. If you could not sell your goods, your children starved. Multiply that pressure by every province, every marketplace, every citizen registration. Every legal proceeding began with the required acknowledgement of the emperor's divinity. To refuse was not merely to lose income, it was to become socially invisible, to lose access to grain, to lose access to water rights, to lose access to justice. That is what the mark of the beast meant to the first readers of Revelation. It was not a barcode. It was not a chip. It was a public act of allegiance without which you could not participate in the economy. Buy or sell required loyalty. Loyalty required worship. Worship required denial of Christ. And the community that heard John's letter had to decide every single day whether the price of bread was worth the price of their soul. Historians estimate that during the reigns of Nero and Domitian alone, the number of Christians executed for refusing to sacrifice to the emperor ran into the thousands, not a symbolic number. Real names, real burials, real families with empty seats at the table. Silence. That is what a house sounded like when the father had been dragged away for refusing to burn incense to Caesar's image. Silence. And the sound of a mother trying to explain to 5-year-old children why they no longer had bread on the table. You are meant to feel that weight when you read the number 666. John did not encode Nero because he was playing a game. He encoded Nero because naming him openly would have cost the life of every believer who was found with the manuscript. Now step back for a moment and read the count itself as a spiritual instruction. Revelation 13, verse 18, does not say interpret this symbolically. It says calculate. In Greek, sephisato. The verb comes from sephos, meaning a small pebble. Ancient people counted using pebbles on tables, sliding them into columns the way an abacus works. To calculate meant to sit down with actual objects and do actual math. It was tangible. It was hands-on. It was work. John was telling his readers to move pebbles across a table until they saw a name emerge. That instruction has a shadow message. It says the truth about the beast is not accessible by fear. It is not accessible by rumor. It is not accessible by mystical intuition. It is accessible by careful, sober, evidence-based reasoning. You do the math. You check your work. You examine the letters and the values and the historical context and the manuscript variants and the political conditions of the writer, and then you draw a conclusion. In an age of hysteria about the number 666, in an age of tabloid predictions and internet speculation, John's instruction lands with unexpected calm. Calculate. Do not panic. Do not run from the number. Do not tattoo it. Do not fear it as if the digits themselves were cursed. Understand it. Do the work. That is the wisdom the verse promises to the one who has understanding. There is a strange archaeology to how this number has traveled through history. In the 2nd century, Irenaeus of Lyons, a bishop who had personally known Polycarp, who had personally known the Apostle John, wrote extensively about the number. Irenaeus warned against certain speculation, but confirmed that the earliest generations understood the number to point at a specific human being. His writings, preserved in the work Against Heresies, are the oldest surviving commentary on the verse. He rejected the variant reading of 616 as a scribal mistake. Modern manuscript discoveries have shown he might have been too confident on that point. But his central claim held, the number is a man. In the 4th century, after Constantine legalized Christianity in the year 313 of the Common Era, interpretations shifted. As Rome became Christian, the beast could no longer comfortably be Rome, so the target moved. Some early medieval commentators pointed east at the rising power of Islam. Others pointed at heretical sects. Still others pointed at future emperors they did not like. In the 16th century, during the Reformation, Martin Luther pointed at the papacy. Catholic commentators pointed back at Luther. Each side calculated the name of the other and found 666 lurking somewhere in the letters. In the 20th century, the number was applied with varying degrees of credibility to Napoleon Bonaparte, to Kaiser Wilhelm II, to Adolf Hitler, to Joseph Stalin, to Mao Zedong, to various American presidents whose political opponents did not care for them, and to entire economic systems, including credit cards and modern banking networks. None of those calculations dislodged the original. Nero remains the most defensible historical target, but every generation has found faces to fit the pattern, and the pattern keeps not running out. That is the strange gift of the number. It refuses to be finished. The reason it refuses to be finished sits inside the theological heart of Revelation. John was not writing a horoscope. He was writing a diagnosis of what happens whenever human power tries to occupy the throne of God. It happened with Nero. It happened with countless successors. It will happen again. The specific man changes. The pattern does not. 666 is a portrait of the seat, not of the sitter, which is why the count is not really about identifying an individual. It is about recognizing the shape. Once you have run the arithmetic on Nero, you know what to look for. You know that the beast rises when a state demands what belongs only to God. You know that the mark takes many forms, but the principle stays constant. Allegiance for access. Worship for participation. Compromise your conscience or lose your bread. The moment that trade is offered, the beast is present, regardless of what century you live in. That framing changes how the number sits with you. It stops being a scare tactic on the walls of a haunted house. It becomes a diagnostic instrument, a test you can apply to any regime, any ideology, any system. If it demands what belongs to God, if it enforces its demand through economic exclusion, if it punishes dissent with social death, then the pattern is present. Whether the specific number appears in the ruler's name is almost beside the point. John wanted his readers to be sober, not superstitious. The most curious feature of the entire verse is how quietly it treats itself. Revelation is a book full of thunderous imagery, seven-headed dragons, seals cracking open the sky, horsemen riding across ruined fields, a woman clothed with the sun. In the middle of all that spectacle, John pauses for one instruction that is domestic and quiet. Sit down. Take the letters, add them up. Here is wisdom. The spectacle is theater. The math is the message. And when you finish the math, you find that the beast John saw in his vision, the beast his readers feared with their whole hearts, was a man they knew by name. A man who had already died, a man whose corpse had been buried nearly 30 years before the manuscript was even written, a man whose power over the world had ended. That is the second wisdom hiding in the verse. Every beast the Count has ever named turned out to be mortal. Nero died, the medieval emperors died, the dictators of the 20th century died, their systems collapsed, their marks lost their meaning. Their coins are archaeology now. 6 is the number of a man, which means every beast the number describes carries a built-in expiration date. The math is not only a diagnostic tool, it is a promise. Whatever face the pattern wears in your century, it belongs to a mortal, and mortals do not last. You can walk into a museum today and hold a coin minted under Nero. It is small, a bronze sestertius, worn thin by handling, bearing the profile of a young man with a heavy jaw and curled hair. You can turn it over and see the imperial titles pressed into the metal. This was the mark that Christians in the 1st century had to handle to buy grain. This was the object that made every market visit a small liturgical crisis. And now it sits as a curiosity behind glass, priced at a few $100s, its power completely evaporated. That coin is what happens to every beast given enough time. The count Revelation 13 commands you to make is not, in the end, a count of digits. It is a count of centuries. It is an audit of empires. It is the recognition that every kingdom claiming the throne of God has fallen and will fall, and that the pattern of their falling is written into the mathematics of who they were. Which brings you to the last piece of the puzzle, because the same book that gives you 666 also gives you another number, 7, the number of completion, the number of God. It appears in Revelation more than 50 times. 7 churches, 7 spirits, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls, 7 stars, 7 lampstands. The number of divine order saturates every chapter around the number of human failure. The contrast is intentional. John set the beast's number, 3 6s, against the flood of 7s that describe the throne of heaven. The math shows the reader, without ever raising its voice, which side eventually runs out. 6 always falls short of 7. Every time, in every generation, by exactly the margin the ancient Hebrew scribes built into their alphabet more than 1,000 years before John was born. That is why the count matters, and that is why the number has outlived every one of its targets. Not because the digits themselves are magical, because the arithmetic reveals a structure older than Rome, older than Nero, older than the alphabet John used to encode his warning. The structure says that human beings can climb very high, can dress in purple, can demand worship, can carve their names into the coinage of the world, and still, at the end of the count, remain one short of the 7 that belongs only to God. Nero climbed as high as any human being ever climbed. He wore the purple. He was called divine. His face traveled on every coin from Britain to Syria, and the arithmetic put him at 666. One short, always one short. He died at 30. He never saw the manuscript that named him. He never knew that a prisoner on a small island, writing by lamplight in the last decade of the 1st century, had built into the record a puzzle that would outlast the Roman Empire, outlast the Byzantine Empire, outlast the Holy Roman Empire, outlast every empire since, and still be running its calculations in the 21st century, still finding beasts, still exposing them, still counting. The wisdom in the verse is not a warning about a future tattoo. It is not a superstition about credit cards or barcodes or microchips. It is a mathematical proof sealed in the letters of 2 ancient alphabets that every human being who tries to sit on the throne of God will register in the honest arithmetic of the universe as 666. And every reader who does the math, honestly and carefully and with a stylus and a wax tablet and a clear head, will see the same conclusion. The beast has a name. The name is mortal. The count always ends the same way.